right now, it's very, very unlikely that we're going to get back to anything that's quote unquote normal this year. I think vaccine or some sort of medicine that kind of allows people to be more comfortable getting out, getting back to work will be very, very critical. The analysis we've done shows that people are actually doing long-haul commute, going on holidays. That is really unchanged from last year's levels, but it's commuting to work, for recreation, for short-haul travel, that's down sharply, like over 10% year on year. And our estimates show that 40% of US gasoline demand comes from commuting. And I think that's where it's a very, very long recovery ahead. And I would even argue that maybe US gasoline demand has peaked. We may not go back to pre-COVID-19 levels simply because I think more and more employers will encourage some form of home working. I'm not saying everybody's going to be at home all the time, but you might really struggle, especially if efficiency in cars are going up at the same time.
Amrita, 2020 will be the year that we all remember for a variety of reasons. One of those reasons is the historic move in oil prices towards negative prices for certain futures contracts earlier this year. We are a far cry from there. We are well above negative prices right now. And it's been a demand resurgence seen coming as driving that higher price. What is it then about oil prices today that may tell you whether or not we could see a leveling off of those demand expectations?
I think the reason why we haven't really moved higher in oil prices after that kind of big rally that we saw since April, we've basically been sideways for a good month and a half, around $40, right? And I think that really tells you that we had that demand recovery, but since then it's stalling. And remember, it's not just the US, right? China, very much a V-shaped recovery, but then you've got India that's faltering, Europe is mixed. So this whole recovery picture is very much a mixed bag. We definitely far away from the lows we've seen in April, and I want to reiterate, we don't expect to go back to those levels again, but it doesn't mean we are going back to 2019 levels. Demand really needs to pick up another leg from here if oil prices are to move higher, but also we have so much inventory that needs to be run down first.
Oh, that's a great transition, because that's where I wanted to go next, Amrita. We learned just this past week that oil production in America continues to recover, but it's still below the levels that we saw back in April. But we're producing more. Other oil-producing countries are producing more. So is there a supply issue that's going to overwhelm any kind of demand recovery, even if there is one there?
No, I think for now, at least, like you say, yes, there is a bit of a recovery. If anything, the supply response was steeper than the demand response. To your point, oil prices were negative. Producers panicked. They shut in production all around the world. OPEC had that historic deal. So over the last few months, supply has been running lower than demand. We have been drawing down inventories. So yes, while we are seeing a month-on-month recovery in supplies, they still remain below demand. So that's not a concern. But the problem is we're probably going to take a year to run down these inventories, even if supply stays a little bit lower than demand. What you really need is demand to pick up a lot quicker than supplies are picking up. Right now, supplies are only marginally lower than demand.
Before we let you go really quickly here, the health of the U.S. shale industry, is it going to get better for them? Is it going to get worse? What do you think?
I think it's going to be very, very challenging, especially in this kind of environment where oil prices are at $40, ESG, all this kind of talk about environment and just away from fracking. I think just the amount of investor money that's required to keep shale going, that's the biggest challenge the industry faces. Of course, there's going to be the big companies that survive and they will continue to get better, but we do expect shale, again, much like US demand, probably not to see the highs again. It'll grow, but at a much slower pace and not at the levels we've seen in the past few years.